In this episode of the Houndsman XP podcast, we're going to have Kevin Hall with dogsRtreed back on the mic. Kevin was with us before, and he's the one that writes the Long Walker story, and we're going to cover all of that, but we are going to talk about gearing up for spring bear season. Several of the western states have spring bear seasons, and the guys back here in the east, well, we just want to get out and train some dogs and keep them rolling. So we're going to talk about how to gear up, prepare dogs, prepare yourselves. A lot of good topics here. You can find us on Facebook at Houndsman XP Podcast and on Instagram at Houndsman_XP_podcast. Now, without any further delay, let's get to the podcast. Houndsman XP fans, we've got an old friend on the podcast today. We've got Kevin Hall of dogsRtreed. And Kevin, you've seen his brand on our social media pages, dogsRtreed and Plot Dogs several times. Kevin and Nancy have become very good friends of Houndsman XP, and I want to welcome you back, Kevin. How are you today?
I'm doing great this morning, Chris. Thanks. It's a privilege to be back on the show.
Oh, yeah. And you did so well the first time that you were on here that the fans have been asking for you by name.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a compliment. We'll take that as a compliment.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
Kevin, there's a lot of things you're doing right now. You're busy with your dogsRtreed brand and your Plot Dogs brand. There's a lot of good things coming from those two brands, but the Long Walker, that's what you've really kind of built this audience around here lately. Is you're riding with the Long Walker. How's that going?
It's going really well. It's captured quite a following. I get a lot of compliments about that, and people are interested. And I always try to leave a bit of a cliffhanger at the end of every chapter to keep people interested, and I think people kind of enjoy that. They've reacted well to it. It's been enjoyable for me to reminisce a lot of these stories and try to put them down. So,
and those are all factual. I mean, fact based. It's kind of like
they're all
watching
based on something that actually happened. Yeah, either persons, places, or things that are close to me in one way or the other. Yep.
Last week's podcast was with Clay Newcomb and Steve, and we talked about storytelling. And you're definitely capitalizing on storytelling and that's quite a talent to take an actual event that happened and then build a story around it. I mean, movie producers do it all the time, and look what impact it has.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that it's not hard to do, really, because you just got to lay out what actually happened. And so it actually can kind of come quite easy for you if anybody else is interested in trying something like that. It's not as difficult as you might think. And the interesting thing about this is it's all fact-based, but then there's a lot of connective tissue between the stories that are somewhat imaginary, but possible, not out of the realm of possibility and stuff. So that's kind of fun. You can kind of let your imagination run wild a little bit with some of these things. And so it's, nobody can really hold you to the fire on any of it, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's part imaginary, so it's fun to do.
As we sit here and we have this discussion, I'm looking at my bookshelf and I see a book called The Frontiersman, and Alan Eckert wrote that book. He wrote several books, but The Frontiersman especially is probably one of his best-known works, and that is a historical fiction novel. So he took the actual life of Simon Kenton and Daniel Boone and Jacob Greathouse and different people from right here in the region that I live in, the Ohio River Valley, northern Kentucky area, and took those personalities and then built this novel around it. And there's no way that Alan Eckert could recall or document or anything else the conversations in this novel, but it was more than likely pretty accurate of what would have been talked about surrounding these events. So is that kind of what you're doing with the Long Walker?
Yeah, it is. It is. And as far as the production schedule, we'd like to have it wrapped up by Labor Day weekend. So, because people have been asking, when's the book coming out? When's it coming out? You know, and so that's kind of the timeline that we're shooting for.
Great.
So we're winding it down, but there's some great stories to come. And I've got the ending in mind already with a series of about 3 chapters that I'll tie in together. And it's going to involve, you know, some local houndsmen and a famous dog, and of course our featured cat, you know, that's like the hero, and it's got a villain government hunter involved in it, and that's going to be good. It's going to be. Yeah, I'm excited to get to that.
Are you saying that the government hunter is the villain?
Well, he's got a different agenda, you know, than the houndsmen do. You know, the houndsmen are just into this because it's an exciting adventure, and they want to see if they can catch these cats in the summertime. You know, they never really had any intention of killing cats for him, but they were interested in the challenge of trying to catch these summertime sheep-killing lions. Well, they found themselves in an awkward situation because they got good at it. Yeah. You know, they actually were going out and consistently started to catch cats in the summertime because they came up with a strategy that worked for them. And so,
don't spoil it for us. I don't want to spoil this thing.
Yeah. So we're excited about getting it to that point.
I'm excited. I can't wait to see it. Hopefully, I can get a little sneak peek.
Oh,
you're going to do it.
Yeah.
You're going to get a sneak.
Maybe an autographed copy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now we're talking.
There you go.
You know, the thing about these hound books is, if you look at them, you look at the work by Del Cameron, or look at the work of the Dale Lee, and those books are valuable now. If you try to find those books on Amazon or anywhere you can buy a book, you know, they're $300. And I just purchased Van Johnson's book and finished it within 3 days. I mean, it's a complete book. It just draws you in and you read it. But I think Van Johnson's book is going to be that type of book soon too.
Good. I ordered it myself as well, so hopefully by the time this airs, I've had a chance to read it.
I think once you get into it, you'll tear through it. I really do.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the podcast. By the way, that was a great story, and he told it really well.
Yeah, he's an entertaining guy, and when we get back on the Navajo next this fall, we'll definitely hook up with Van and try to sit down with him and meet him and get to know him better.
Yeah, that'd be great.
He's a man. When you read his book and after you talk to him, you can tell that he's a man of high character. So he's the type of people we like to be around.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Well, hey, we are here to talk about bear hunting. March is Bear Hunters Month at Houndsman XP, and living in the state of Idaho and hunting plots and bear hunting for a number of years, and the fact that you were such a good guest, we wanted to have you back on to talk to you about bear hunting, specifically in Idaho, but talk about some things about what you look for in hounds and your strategies for hunting bear. A lot of people are going to be gearing up for bear season, spring bear seasons, and spring training seasons, and carry it right on into the fall. So Steve and I decided it would be real timely to do a series on bear hunting in the month of March, not to mention the fact that Michigan Bear Hunters hold a convention this month. Wisconsin Bear Hunters Association holds their annual convention. Steve, as we speak, is on the road to the UP Bear Houndsman Association. And we've got APA, the American Plot Association Breed Days down in Greenville, Tennessee, all occurring in the month of March. So there's a lot of activity surrounding bear hunting. And we want to showcase some bear hunters and talk to some bear hunters about how they're hunting, where they're hunting, gearing up for, what they do to gear up for bear season and things like that. So you think you're up for that?
Yeah, I'm up for that. Yeah, bear hunting is exciting. I enjoy bear hunting more than lion hunting, actually. It's shifted back and forth, over the years. Sometimes I've been primarily a lion hunter and a part-time bear hunter, and then at other times it's more bear hunting than lion hunting. It just kind of depends on what the lion population is actually and what's going on at the time. But you can't beat the bear hunting as far as the level of excitement. And, you got the nicer weather and the longer days and, good camping conditions and whatnot. And generally, it's a lot easier to involve a lot more people in a hunt with bear hunting than it is with lion hunting. And so it's just a real enjoyable experience. And the level of excitement's it's just limitless. It's when you get dogs bait up on a bear on a hot race, a walking, fighting bear, and they're down in the hollow down below you and just rocking that canyon. It's something that every houndsman dreams of, and it's what keeps you going. That's for sure. Yeah, so I really enjoy the bear hunting.
Well, it'll
be right around the corner. Yeah, people are gearing up for it. So
when do you guys start your spring bear season there in Idaho?
Well, generally, there's slight variations in unit by unit statewide, but typically everything opens up in April 1st or April 15th is when the general season's open. And the kill seasons run on into about mid-June to late June, depending on the units. Now, it's April 15th for us, but it's seldom that you're in the woods by April 15th because of the snowpack. So when you actually get started, all depends on your access to the hills. There's a lot of times that we don't get even to our areas to put bait out until after Mother's Day, which is, around the 5th of May or so. Mm-hmm. And then it's a couple, 3 weeks before, the bears start to really get active. So it can be Memorial Day weekend before things start to really get going. But that's kind of a key time, in my neck of the woods. From Memorial Day weekend on, things just change, and it just really picks up. Boars are moving around. The breeding season is on, and, they've gone through their digestive phase of, getting their hibernating digestive system cleaned out, and now they're into eating real food, so their bait's harder and moving around more. And right after Memorial Day, things pick up. And it's the prime time is pretty much the whole month of June and on into maybe 4th of July. But after 4th of July, things just start getting so hot that it changes things a bit. And then by about July 15th to 20th, the huckleberries come on. And once
there you go.
Come on, it really changes everything. The bears are all in different places. You'll still find them, but you won't find them on your baits anymore. You got to go find huckleberries. So it shifts your strategy, and things change right there at about July 20th, it seems. So
I was amazed. I was just going to say I was amazed by the culture surrounding huckleberries, especially up towards Kalispell, Montana. When I was out there recently, there were places that were advertising huckleberry jellies and jams, and I eat huckleberry pie and a whole different aspect that I really never paid attention to previously when I was out in your neck of the woods. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
we see a lot more productivity after the kill season closes. We're lucky because the kill season will close around mid-June, and so there's a lot less hunting pressure. There's less bear hunting activity in the woods because the bait hunters are done. They're not out anymore, so their baits have all dried up, and so then the hound dogger baits are the only game in town for the bears. So things kind of pick up about that.
That's an interesting topic. You guys allow baiting. Are there any other states around you right there that are allowing baiting for bears? Does Utah allow baiting?
I can't speak for that.
Okay.
To tell you the truth, accurately, yeah, I'm not sure. But I know, Idaho is one of the few states that allow it, that allow everything. I mean, we've got spot and stalk hunting, and there's incidental hunting, that overlap the deer and elk seasons, and there's bait hunting, and there's hound hunting, and we've got spring hunting, and we've got fall hunting, and we've got a summer pursuit only season. So, Idaho, fortunately for us, we've still got it all. So
yeah,
we're very fortunate that way. So
America.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Here. Yeah. And we've got a good Fish and Game Commission and a good culture, at the State House too, that's going to kind of keep it that way for a while.
Yeah, you guys just passed a rule about wolf harvest out there, which was kind of taking social media by storm, but it's got a lot of people across the West that are taking notice, and it's got its opposition and different things like that. But from where I sit, it looks like Idaho is kind of sitting back and saying, hey, this is our resource, and we're going to manage it at the state level like it was intended to be managed, and we really don't care what you think. And I applaud Idaho for that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Same here. Yeah, that was refreshing to see. That's good. Yeah. Hopefully it has an impact.
And we'll get into bear dogs and gearing up for bear season and some of the things you do. But real quick, I want to talk about this baiting issue because it recently came under attack. There's a couple things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the baiting issue, and then I want to talk about another topic, and then we'll get into this other stuff. But it recently came under attack and was challenged in the Ninth Circuit out there in Missoula, Montana, for baiting on National Forest and BLM lands. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. Yeah, but they backed off, and they determined that would be a decision made by the individual states.
Right.
So that was a win. That was a win for us.
Yeah, and
and there again, like all these others, there wasn't any biological reason for any of that. It was just another ploy by the antis and the left to cut into a piece of the pie on a hunting opportunity. That's all it was. They still would have allowed it on private lands, but not on public lands, which pretty well shuts it down.
Right. Their argument was it was all surrounded around the grizzly bear and talking about hunters that were having incidental kills off of baits, and there are only two times that you're ever going to get a better there are no more than two times that you're going to get the best look at a bear. One is when you're sitting there on a bait and you're hunting a bait. You can absolutely look at that bear and know a lot of stuff about that bear. You can sex the bear. You can get an idea how big the bear is, whether it's a healthy bear. You can really evaluate the value of managing the resource when you can sit there and look at a bear. And Montana, I know, has a bear identification course that you have to take online prior to even purchasing a bear license. And then so that makes it irrelevant. Not to say that a mistake can't happen, but it is highly unlikely. And the other time is when you have a bear treed. You're pursuing with hounds, and that's true for bobcats, lions. And so that's why it's so important to keep hound hunting, baiting, things like that in the management plan, because they're valuable tools. It's not just a way for us to harvest more bear. The professionals in this business know that is a valuable tool to manage this resource.
That's absolutely true. And here in Idaho, there's already protections as far as grizzly bears. Where grizzly bears are common in the greater Yellowstone area, there isn't baiting allowed in those units and a few units adjacent to that. So that they've already managed in a buffer to prevent, bear bait conflicts with grizzlies, as far as the state of Idaho. So that seems to be working out pretty well.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, you don't want to bait where there's grizzlies. We did. We used to hunt it's called the Island Park area. And as the number of grizzlies expanded, when they come in on your bait, it's just devastating. They come in and just wipe you out completely and crush your barrels and eat all your food and dig these huge excavations all around the bait. There was like a sow and a couple of yearling grizzlies that had moved in on us one time, and there was 8 or 9 of these excavations all dug around the tree, at our bait site where they just camped out on it.
Yeah.
And of course they're going to run your black bears off. Black bears aren't
Right.
going to tolerate that. So it pretty well drove us out of that area.
Let me ask you this question real quick.
Between that and the wolves. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
So, will a grizzly bear, you say they camp out on your bait, will they camp out on that like they will a kill and be protective of it?
Well, we never had that happen, but they were definitely camped out there.
Yeah.
They'd set up shop, and they'd made it part of their route, to come back in and check on that.
Mm-hmm.
And they got real comfortable with the site. And I don't know enough about grizzly biology, but I assume that those excavations and those beds, had meant something of permanence to them, and probably a signal to all the other bears in the area that this is my spot. And at least that's the way we took it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
We're going to move on. With that, they're not going to tree. If you get on one by accident, they're not going to tree. You're just going to end up with this long, drawn out, walking bay up, until it's over. And, we don't want that. So
there's all kinds of rabbit paths we could go down with. Yeah, there's all kinds of rabbit paths we could go down on, hounds on grizzlies and brown bears. Our friends over in Norway and Sweden, I know that they're in Russia. They still hunt brown bears with dogs. That puts a whole different spin on bear hunting when you got to pull dogs off a brown bear. Wow.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That close quarters. Of course, it's always close quarters. Yeah, when you're doing that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's talk about this spring gear up for bear hunting, Kevin. I know that everybody has got their own things their own list of things they go through getting ready for bear season, starting with the anticipation, and then getting things geared up for bear season. So is there anything specific you do with your dogs prior to bear season?
Well, he's got to be in shape. That's the biggest thing is just conditioning program. Have your dog on a good nutritional program and a good conditioning program, and start with dogs that are in shape would be the biggest thing.
Well, I'll put one out there that they can do to get ready. Yeah. So they can listen to the Houndsman XP podcast on feeding for performance and nutrition with Dr. Arlie Reynolds. That would be a good place to start.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, and if anybody's on here that hasn't listened to that one, I think it was episode 34, if I'm not mistaken. But you can go back through all the episodes and you'll find it. It's excellent on feeding your dogs and nutrition and keeping your dogs hydrated. There's some extremely valuable tips and insights in there that are science-based. And I've been using a lot of that as far as preconditioning my dogs prior to a hunt, pre-hydrating them, and then post-hydrating them after a hunt. I got my jugs labeled like pre-workout and post-workout, to make it easier for me. But that's the difference. Since I've started using it, the dogs just recover better, and they just seem to stay healthier. And I don't know, maybe it's in my mind. I don't know, but I think that it's working. And I'll find out more during bear season, because the hydration it's a bigger deal during bear season, of course, than it would be during lion season. So we'll be putting that to the test. But that was an excellent podcast on nutrition and hydration for your dogs. Excellent. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's probably not it's probably not. Yeah. Yeah. It is a big thing. And I would say it's not in your mind, Kevin, because Dr. Arlie Reynolds has got this little tag behind his name that says PhD. So, and he's got real world experience with those sled dogs and things like that. So, he talks about the value of feeding a consistent diet year round, but people can go back. It's actually episode 31. They can listen to Arlie Reynolds there.
31.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you had said something. You said something that was going to be a segue here. We'll have to move on. It'll come back to me. So conditioning. You're conditioning your dogs.
Conditioning is roading. You know, and you can't ever get them to bear hunting shape through roading, but you can sure as heck give them a good head start. There is a difference, but typically, I'm lucky. I live right across from a BOM, motorized vehicle recreation site, and it's just all sagebrush hills with maybe from the bottom to the top there's maybe 2,000 feet of elevation, but they've cut in ATV trails up and down almost every ridge and every bottom. And there's just endless combinations of loops that I can make roading my dogs behind the four-wheeler up in there. And I can road them, you know, anywhere from 3 miles to 11 or 12 on any given day, just depending on how much time I've got to go, you know. So I like to take them over there and run them at least twice a week, if not 3 times a week. You got to start out slow, you know, so that you don't blow a pad, and you got to just be like starting a new conditioning program for yourself. You know, you want them to be there right away, but they won't. But after 10 trips like that, you know, giving them anywhere from just 3 to 8 miles, it makes a huge difference. Mm-hmm. You know, that muscle tone will come back and the feet will toughen up and they just get more gamey. And, you know, for me, it's also an opportunity for trash breaking, you know, because there's a few deer and moose up in there and whatnot too. So, you know, you're out working the dogs and it's all good, but it takes time. You got to figure about 6 weeks, at least 6 weeks of conditioning. Mm-hmm. I do anyway, to get to where I feel like I'm ready. So about time change, about when the clocks change here, which is around like March 21st or so is when I start, so that by, you know, late April, I'm ready. First part of May, and then just continue on through. And then once you're hunting them, you know, they don't need it as much, because then hopefully you're getting enough races while you're hunting that, you know, those days in between you can use for rest cycles. But, you know, it's one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen with guys that show up to go bear hunting with you and say it's the 1st of June. They want to go hunting with you and their dogs are out of shape. Well, right. By the time they can get their dog in shape, the season's over. You know, they've missed the curve already. Mm-hmm. And so getting that dog at a proper weight and a baseline of conditioning is the biggest thing as far as, you know. And then of course, you know, you got to have all your equipment ready, you know, new batteries in your tracking collars. If you're running the old beep collars that you can change a battery in, or, you know, just general equipment maintenance, just be ready for the start, because it's kind of like going into a battle. You're going to see a lot of stuff. You're going to see broken and chewed up antennas and batteries failing and
yeah, it's good. It's good to have some of that stuff on hand for in the field maintenance for sure. It is.
Well, you said, and for your vehicles as well. You know, if you, I don't know, I see a lot of guys head into the woods unprepared. You know, no shovels, no chains, you know, no chainsaw, no tow straps, no things like that. And that's probably, I know that's basic to the majority of guys that are listening to this, but yet you run into a lot of people out there that need help, and really all they need was a tow. And do you have a tow strap? No. Well, okay, we'll use mine. Just little things, you know, that a guy, it's general outdoorsman things, you know.
Sure.
To the choir here, I know that, but you'd be surprised at how many people are not prepared when they set out, you know. Right. And I'll tell you a big thing while I'm thinking about it. I went to a Garmin InReach a couple years ago because I was doing a lot of hunting by myself. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole nother subject actually to talk about, is hunting alone. But I use a Garmin InReach, and that's just been wonderful. And that's something that everybody ought to have, because no matter where you're at, you can get a text message out to somebody, you know, through the satellite on that. And it sure makes it nice in case you do get hung up and you've got a problem. At least you're not alone. You can still communicate with somebody, even if it's, you know, sending a message to your wife and just saying, hey, I'm going to be late. You know, I got stuck. I'm going to be late, but don't worry. I'm going to make it. Something like that. And it sure made Nancy's outlook on my hunting alone a lot better, because she doesn't worry about me so much, because she can actually track me on her phone as well at the same time, in real time, and she can see where I'm at. And she can see if I'm still moving around, you know, going up and down canyons, or if I've stopped on the road and I'm hiking, so she knows, oh, he's hiking at something, so he must got a race going or something, and so she can kind of see what's going on.
And she's doing that off the inReach?
Yeah, she's doing it off the inReach. Yeah, she just logs into my account on the inReach, and she can see where I'm at in real time.
You know, that's something that
tracks me as well, and it's nice. It's kind of comforting when you're out there to know that, you know, somebody's kind of watching you. At least you think maybe she is. But anyway,
right.
That you can reach out. You know, if something bad happens, what worries me more than anything is like falling and breaking your leg. You know, yeah, you've got a problem. You know, you're going into shock and you can't get yourself out. You know, what are you going to do? And when you're by yourself, and with that inReach, you can reach out and you know, the effort to come get you is not a search and rescue. It's just a rescue because they know where you're at already. So, you know,
nice. You know, it's something that the Eastern houndsman probably doesn't think about enough. You know, our country back here isn't as big as what you're hunting out there. However, it still gets cold, and I've been colder in Bear Branch, Indiana at 35 degrees than I have in Idaho at 0. The climate's different and things like that. And we're just talking about, you know, blowing a knee out, or, you know, I don't know if anybody's ever had, you know, snapped an Achilles tendon or strained one. That can shut you down and put you in danger at that point. So, you know, some things that, some basic things that, and we're trying to bridge the gap here, because the beauty of having a podcast is people back east can take ideas from guys out west, and guys out west can hear what guys in the east are doing, and then share information through the podcast and say, hey, I never thought about that. You know, the main thing around here, the main rule of thumb for bear hunting in the east is don't leave the truck without your radio. A typical bear hunt in the east is not normally done by yourself. There are people that do hunt by themselves here, but typical eastern bear hunt, there's a group of people there. You're communicating on ham radio or some private radio channel, and you've got a handheld portable. And when you leave the truck, you make sure you take that radio with you, and you can communicate. But I've seen radio communications fail, both in my professional life, law enforcement for 28 years. I've seen it fail there, and I've seen it fail in the woods or on the mountain. So that Garmin inReach is a good option that people ought to at least investigate and look into, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you pay a monthly subscription for it, and kind of like, you know, your OnX program and whatnot, and but it's not terribly expensive. And just to have the peace of mind of knowing you can reach out when you don't have phone service. It just gives you a lot of peace of mind. I've been a lot bolder about some of the things I've done and some of the places I've gone just because of it, and just felt more at ease. So,
and it's still legal to drive with the Garmin inReach. Most of the time when I've done things that made me bolder, it usually wasn't legal for me to drive afterwards.
There you go. Yeah. Another subject. Yeah.
That's a rabbit path.
The dark side. Yeah.
So,
me too.
But anyway,
so you got equipment, and you might also consider conditioning for yourself, you know. And I don't know how many times I've been roading my dogs. I got my dogs in great shape, and I'm thinking I need to be out there on the road with them instead of sitting here on this 4-wheeler, you know. So conditioning for yourself can be a big deal. Anything you can do to, you know, shed those couple of pounds or, you know, build up your lung capacity and get a little strength in your legs is going to be a benefit down the road. Especially the couple of guys I hunt with, man, they're just mountain goats. And I've given up trying to keep up with them, to tell you the truth. They just outwalk me. And so, you know, it's helped me to resign myself to that fact that these guys are going to outwalk me, and so I'll just let them get to the tree first. They'll take care of things until I get there, you know. But, I hunt with some guys that really take that seriously. Steve Sherrick and Joe Hyde, in particular. Tough guys to keep up with, but good guys to hunt with, I'll tell you what.
Well, let's talk
for
about
yourself is something you don't want to overlook, especially if we're Western hunting. I saw video of a guy on a coon hunt back east someplace, and his dogs would treat a coon 800 yards out. And it appeared to me that was like remarkable, that they were 800 yards out on this coon.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not familiar with what that really means in the coon hunting world, where he is. But 800 yards would be a pop-up here, of course. We don't measure them in yards. We measure them in miles, and it's generally double digits. As far as a race, maybe
right.
not just what you're going to walk. But,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So typically bear hunting can stretch you out pretty good. And
yeah, the longest bear race that I've been on back east here was with Evan Workman over in West Virginia, and by the end of the day, when the bear actually had crossed the road in front of us later on in the day, and at that point we'd already put in 20 miles on that bear race. So,
oh man, yeah.
But yeah, you bring up a really good point there, Kevin. And we used to do something on our social media platforms called Fat Boy Friday, and it would be, it would be throwing down the challenge of getting out there and keeping yourself prepared. And I think it's something that is so commonly overlooked by sportsmen in general and houndsmen specifically, that part of being a good hunting partner is being prepared. Because when I've got to stop and take care of you because you didn't do your due diligence to get ready for bear season or for coon season or whatever, now I always looked at it this way. When I worked for the state, one of the main causes of hunting-related injuries was something as simple as failing to wear your safety belt in a tree stand. Tree stand falls were the number one cause of injury in hunting. It still is. So I used to tell people, and I told my friends this, I don't wear a safety belt. And that's what they would tell me. Why not? Well, it's too uncomfortable. Well, it's not nearly as uncomfortable as inconveniencing 20 people, which are all volunteer firemen usually, that come out to have to haul your fat butt out of a deep holler and put you on a helicopter. How many people are you inconveniencing at that point? So that's the message I always have for people. And you can't avoid everything. I mean, accidents are going to happen, but just a little bit of preparation, a few times a week, can make a world of difference. Not only in from that aspect, but also for you to be able to enjoy the hunt.
Right. Yeah. So what happens there, guys? They just lose their balance, or they fall asleep, or they stand up to stretch and they just have a dizzy moment, or what?
Oh, just a variety of things. I mean, it could be a tree stand failure. It could be people say, well, if my tree stand starts to fall, I'm going to jump. Well, that doesn't happen because you can't react fast enough to jump off that platform. So you're going to fall. And, So a lot of times it was things like that, and it wasn't due to manufacturer. It's usually due to negligence for keeping their maintenance on their tree stands and things like that, which is what caused that failure. Rusted cables, like rusted cable breaks, something like that.
One more thing on that would be like having enough gear to spend the night out. And when I'm setting up my backpack, I kind of just limit it to that. What would I need if I had to spend the night out? And it doesn't take a whole lot, but just a little bit of survival gear, a couple of space blankets and some parachute cord to tie things off with, and of course knives and maybe a small saw or something, and fire starter kit, of course, and extra batteries, flashlights and headlamps and whatnot, just and enough candy bars or whatever to spend one night out. And if you've got enough to spend one night out, you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is
my
that?
Friend Steve always, he says, you pack way too much stuff. And he says, but if I ever had to spend a night out, I'd want to be with you. So I take it as a compliment, right? Yeah. So, yeah.
So what does that
good.
pack?
But,
what does that pack typically weigh, Kevin? I mean, when you pack your pack, what do you think that weighs?
Depends on how much water I put in it, but I try to keep it around 15 pounds or less.
That's nothing.
Which isn't a lot. No, it's nothing. No, it's not a lot. No, you don't need a lot. Depends on the weather, what time of year it is and stuff. But no, it's not a lot. Now, you end up with more gear than anything. I mean, anymore, you have like a radio and a Garmin and your phone. And maybe if your shocking system is on a different system than the Alpha, gosh, you end up with all these gadgets. It's quite a bit just to manage pack and all that. At one time, I had like this tactical vest that had a pocket for everything. And it actually was pretty handy because as long as I had my vest, I had everything in it. And I could do a quick assessment, by looking at my pockets to see if I had everything I needed.
Right.
And if my pockets were all full, I was good to go. I wasn't forgetting anything. So it was actually pretty handy.
Yeah.
But, so as far as getting ready for bear season, that's about it. Especially if you're just hunting places you've already hunted before. Maybe if it's somebody that's hunting a new area, then there's going to be some scouting involved,
right.
And getting familiar with the road management regulations from the Forest Service, to see what roads you can use and what ones you can't, or what trails you can use, basic things like that.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's get into the bear dogs that you're hunting, your plots. And I don't know why we keep digging up plot guys. I guess it's because we're all stubborn and hard-headed and like-minded. I don't know. But it seems like we don't have any shortage of guests that are running plots, and maybe there's a reason for that. But just in general, what, in your opinion, makes a good bear dog for where you're at?
Well, if you're talking about a good bear dog, let's talk about like the avatar dog, like the best dog you ever had, or what your ideal dog would be.
What'd you call it? What'd you call it?
The avatar. Your avatar.
Yeah.
That would be like your target bear dog. What you're trying to achieve, maybe with your program, or your goal, or the epitome of what a bear dog is. Would be like your avatar bear dog. So
I like that.
It all goes back to the ABCs of breeding. Ability, brains, and conformation. So, as far as the ability of a dog, I'd say that the number one trait would be drive. Just a run-to-catch attitude and determination, because it's one thing for a dog to follow a track, and it's a whole other thing for a dog to run to catch. And when you've seen it, you know it. There's a difference. When a dog smells a bear and he's thinking about that bear at the other end of that track already, and he wants to go get it. He's not just following along. He wants to go get it. And so the run-to-catch attitude and determination is a big thing. A never-quit attitude is good, but there's times when a dog needs to know when to quit as well. A little different subject. But the dog's going to need speed. It's going to has to be able to run fast and have fast track speed when needed. Now, of course, if you're working out a cold track, the tracking speed of the dog is all going to be dependent upon the track that he's got to work with. A cold track, he's going to have to plug it out, and sort it out until it gets going fast. But once it gets going fast, once the bear's up and running, the dog needs to be fast and have fast track speed and be smart enough to be able to drift the track, and not have to run it, print for print. He's got to just run the air currents and maybe figure out the shortcut. And if he makes a lose, quick to pick it back up. Speed is a big thing in bears. And a lot of walker guys do well because their dogs are fast. They're fast. That's a strong trait of their breed, and they catch bears with speed.
Right.
So that's definitely a thing a dog needs. And then I'll put endurance, because like you said, on that track, you'd already worked it out for 20 miles. The dog needs incredible endurance. So, he needs to be an extreme athlete and just have the tenacity to stay with it for a long, long time. knowing that if he stays with it long enough, in the end, he'll have the outcome that he's looking for. And not all dogs are born with that. That's a breeding trait. And then lastly, I'll put nose. Nose is not the biggest thing about a bear dog because, when a bear's up and running, he's leaving a lot of scent. Nose is not the do-all and end-all of a bear dog. Now, of course, the better nose a dog has, that's always a good thing, especially when you get into striking, or working a cold track off a bait or cold trailing a bear. Nose is always a good thing, but it's not everything in a bear dog. Okay, so and then the dog needs to have brains. Getting a track going.
Before we leave nose, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
One of the messages I got recently is, how do I evaluate the nose? And I want to get your opinion on that, and then I'll give my opinion on nose and how that thing works.
Well, I'll work it around a story because it's all dependent upon the conditions for bear hunting. We caught a bear one morning, and we usually start, early, like 5 a.m., and this was summertime, so it was probably July. So it probably hadn't rained since, like, May. So now things have dried out, and you're getting 90-degree days, and it's dry and dusty in the woods. And we started a bear off a bait, and there was a camera on the bait, and so we knew the bear had been there around midnight. And, I took it out a little slow at first and then picked it up, and anyway, we ran across the bear. It was fairly close to a road, and pulled off of that tree, and there's still time left before it gets too hot to go and see if we can find another one. So we drive around and check our other baits and our striking roads and whatnot, and we didn't turn anything else up, and so now an hour and a half has gone by, and we decided, well, there's a bear in a tree right next to the road back down there. Let's go back and check on that one and see if it left, and we'll just run that one again. And so we went back to it. So now it's like 2 hours since we left that tree. And, of course, the bear's gone. But now it's about 11 o'clock in the morning. And sometime after 10, it starts to get hot. That time of year, it's your 90-degree days. So it's hot. And we turned loose on it, and the dogs couldn't run it. They couldn't run it. Same dog. Now, there's going to be detractors out there that are going to say, well, those dogs don't have any nose at all. But they do. They do. It was just the conditions were such, and the temperature and the humidity, and that's just what happened. So did those dogs lose their nose, through the course of the morning? But the conditions changed, and so trying to evaluate a nose is just that tough. It's really tough to do. So that's my take on it. So what's yours?
Well, being a canine handler for 9 years and being able to test dogs in different condition, we would set them up to check failure levels. And I know houndsmen have done the same thing. Ours was just more of a controlled setting. We knew how old those tracks were and different things like that. But people try to evaluate the dog's scenting ability based totally on the physiological aspects of the dog. They don't, oftentimes they don't consider humidity. They don't consider, houndsmen are really good about, knowing wind directions and things like that, as that is just basic woodsmanship. But when you start figuring in, where's the sun at in the sky? Because if the sun is directly hitting the ground, then it's going to make the scent less palatable for any dog. I don't care what caliber of dog you're hunting. It's going to be there. It's going to diminish their ability to find that track. So then a dog's got to rely on the thing that you've already talked about is brains. Okay, I can still smell this. How much desire do I have to follow this particular scent trail at this point? So you've got brains, you've got desire, you've got a lot of other things. There's some dogs out there that they will track on the most minute scent and take that. And then you have other dogs that are like they're smart enough to know that I'm not going to be able to tree this. They can still smell trace amounts of it there. It's just physically impossible, but it's just a level of your dog's desire. So it's to sit there and say, my dog doesn't have nose. Well, you look at the diagram of a dog's nose. I guarantee you, if we took the skulls of different dogs, or we did some kind of scientific, and it's been done, the scientific diagram of the makeup of a dog, there isn't enough noticeable difference in one hound to another. So there's something else in there that is affecting their ability to follow that track. And so we don't look enough at the environmental effects that affect that track oftentimes when we're judging the nose. That's my take on it. And I also think that if I bring a dog from the East and I put him out there in the conditions that I've hunted in Arizona or South Texas or Idaho or Montana, it takes them a while to reset that thinking that, hey, this is what a bear smells like, or this is what a coon smells like here. And so it takes them a little bit of time to adjust to that. And if you've got a top dog, they'll figure that out. And right. but sometimes, like in your analogy there, sometimes you're just wasting time. You've got dogs, you've got top dogs and things like that, and then your detractors will say, well, they don't have enough nose. And it seems, especially if you shared that story on social media, you'd get you get 10 people or 50 people that jump in and say, well, by God, my dog would follow that. I've ran tracks like that.
Right.
Well, not in that particular situation. You have not.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, it's like when you were out here, we were talking about, I don't care if my dog takes a 2-day-old line track, because I don't want to be 2 days behind the lion. My whole weekend chasing one cat that I might catch or I might not, so if he can't run that track, I'm okay with that.
Right.
You just accept it and go find another track.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we've adjusted our hunting styles to our current lifestyle. I know that you've got a job, I've got a job, and unless it's our job to catch that track and we can follow that track for 2 days and camp on it and keep moving on it, that's just not feasible for most hunters out there right now. There's some that still do it. Van Johnson, that we just had on the podcast, he talked about, and in his book he talks about, camping on those tracks. Ben Lilly and Dale Lee, but that's what they did for a living, and they didn't have a,
right.
It's just a different situation.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I admire guys that they're able to do that. I've never done it.
Yeah. That'd be a whole
another level there.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a commitment.
Yeah. Brett Vaughn talked about, he's done it in the past down there where he's at in Las Cruces. So there's a lot of people that are doing that, but a lot of us just don't have the ability to be able to do that. And we want to optimize every chase. We want to put our dogs on as many chases as they can be on, so I can spend 7 hours trying to figure this one out, or I can drive another half hour and find one that I can be more effective in running.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
What do you think that does to our dogs and our breeding programs? It's kind of a side note. When we consistently drive around and look for those kind of tracks.
For the hotter tracks,
mm-hmm.
Well, you're probably going to end up breeding a hotter-nosed dog over time, if that's your primary consideration. And I know one bloodline of Plott in particular that the guy pretty much abandoned nose. He didn't abandon it entirely, but he had no care or focus really for cold trailing bear dogs. He wanted to rig a super hot blocks blower, bear rig and have jump the bear right there and put pressure on it. And he had dogs that were extremely aggressive and gritty, but they didn't have, his emphasis was not on those. And over time, it kind of changed the whole bloodline, associated with that particular guy.
Mm-hmm.
And even to this day, when you see that name show on a pedigree, that's what I think when I see it, is that probably an aggressive dog, a gritty dog, a good tree dog, but maybe not a super good cold trailing dog.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely think that it would have an effect. There's an advantage there to breeding a multi-purpose dog, a dog that you're hunting lions with and hunting bears with. Now this particular program with this guy, he's just a bear hunter, not just a bear hunter. I don't mean to belittle that in any way.
Right.
But he primarily is a bear hunter, and doesn't focus on cats at all. And so, those dogs suit his needs, and so it's perfect for him. For me, I need my dogs to do multi-purpose work, both lions and bears. And so I'm always going to be looking for a dog, with a really good nose and superior trailing ability,
mm-hmm.
to meet that end. So
I have a question about that before we move on.
It can change a breed. It can change a line of dogs if that's all you're focusing on. Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when
hunting has changed, a coonhound.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a question pertaining to something you said there just a second ago. Do you, and you're talking about you're hunting your dogs on lion and on bear. Do you see is there a transition period? You're coming to the end of lion season. Your bears are going to be out walking around here in a couple weeks. And do you see do you have to pump the brakes? Those dogs have to pump the brakes a little bit to adjust to bear?
When you go from lion to bear, that's an easy transition because generally there's more scent with the bear.
Mm-hmm.
That transition is easy. It's at the other end of the year. It's in the fall when you're going from bears to lions that you kind of get the shift to where you kind of need your dogs to slow down a little bit. I've had a lot of dogs that just flat over on lion tracks. So they smell it and you turn them loose on it and they just take off at full speed. Like you just dumped them off the road, feeding it. And they just run right over the track. And like it wasn't even there, with no regard for the track. They're just out running. And they don't really make it as lion dogs. Their mindset isn't right for being a track dog, like a lion track dog. So we don't really include those in our breeding program anymore. But to shift from lions to bears, now that's easy. That's an easy one. That's quick. Mm-hmm. And the dogs just love to run bears. And one thing about a bear dog, they just love it. You can tell they're excited. And when they hit that scent, they just go ballistic. They want to do it. They love to run bears. Maybe it's because it's easier for them to chase because there's more scent, and maybe it's just because they know at the other end there's more excitement. There's excitement at the end of a bear race, and dogs that thrive on that, and live for that, yeah, those are the good ones. Those are the ones you want.
Warriors.
So so it's easy to make the transition in the spring. In the fall, it's a little bit different.
Right.
But anyway, we're talking about the brains and getting a track going the right direction, and that might seem like a real basic thing, but oftentimes it doesn't happen that way. Now, if you've seen a track on the ground or you saw a bear across the road or across the hillside, you can get it going the right way pretty easy. But when you're just rigging one, it's a dog, or coming off of a bait where the bears have been in and out of the bait maybe several times, or there's multiple bears in and out of the same bait.
Mm-hmm.
So you got both tracks coming in and out. You've got to have a dog that can sort all that out and get the right track going in the right direction to be successful. Those darn bears are hard enough to catch running forwards. You don't need to be running them backwards.
So how do you overcome that?
You just got to have the right dog. There's not much you can do in that situation. You can, as far as starting off a bait, you just need a dog that learns how to do it. It just picks it up, and then you trust your dog. As far as a strike, you might be able to see a track on the road and help them out with it. But it's mostly just the instinct of the dog. It tells them which way it's going with nothing else to go by.
John Wick, in his famous book, Tree Dog Encyclopedia, I think if I recall correctly, he said there were two things that, and he's a world-renowned coonhound trainer, wrote a book, and it's been the Bible for Houndsman for since it was published. But John Wick says that there were two traits that he was never able to overcome, two faults, and one is backtracking, and one is aggressive tree dogs. What do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to this day. Yeah.
Yeah, so that brings some validity to what you say.
Kind of, yeah. And some dogs sometimes prefer a backtrack for some reason. They get it in their head for whatever reason that they'd rather go that way. And once they do, once they're locked into that, you have a hard time getting them off of it.
Yeah.
I had to track them up across the road, and it came across the road, and it was going up the hill. And I took a couple of dogs and turned loose on, well, 3 altogether, and put them all on the track going up the hill. And they went up 50 yards or so, and the two females came back on it, right on the track, and crossed the road. And I didn't get them caught, and so they hit the track going down, back off the road onto the other side. And they were backtracking it hot, and I had to shock them off of it because I couldn't call them off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I got them back to the track and started them forward again. And they did the same thing. They ran up the hill for a ways, and they stopped and they turned around, and they were bound and determined to run it the other way.
What time of day was it?
Well, it was mid-morning.
So thermals are moving.
The third dog, he was a pup at the time, and he took the track the whole way. He actually caught it. He took the track the whole way, the correct way, by himself, and caught the bear the right way. Now, what was the difference between the dogs? I don't know. But there was something about conditions that day.
So you've got thermals rising throughout the day, in the mornings. I'm just wondering. I'm just analyzing your situation here. Yep. So those thermals are carrying that. Yeah, the thermals are carrying that scent up the mountain. You said the track was going uphill, and so
and come to think of it, the road was adjacent to a creek. So the bear just crossed the creek and then crossed the road and then went up the hill. Mm-hmm. So as it's coming up out of the creek, it's wet, so it's probably leaving more scent, initially because it's dripping water off of it. So it smelled stronger if they went back toward the creek than if they went up the dry hillside.
Yeah.
So that was probably it. Yeah. That was
interesting stuff.
Yeah. And the next day, going down a different road, those dogs rigged hard. And I turned them loose, and they went running straight down the road for about 400 yards and treat a bear just right there. So they had enough nose to rig a bear from 400 yards away.
Yeah.
But the day before, they struggled with getting one going the right direction. Interesting things about the dog sports and bear hunting in particular, just all those things that you observe along the way, and that make you think and make you wonder and make it interesting, make you frustrated,
Frustrated. There you go.
Yeah, it's just part of it. It's just part of it. And it's okay to be frustrated. Just don't get mad, because it's just part of it. And I've been doing it for 40 some odd years, and it still happens to me. So if you're a newer guy getting started and you're running into these same things, that's just how it is. Used to it, because it's how it goes. So it makes it interesting, actually, because every day is going to be something a little different. My buddies, we all like to get together after a race, and we reconstruct what just happened. And sometimes that conversation goes on for quite a while, and the more dogs involved and the more things that happen and the further it went, the more of a reconstruction has to happen. And a lot of times it's a little brainstorming session to where you compile information that each person has into one cluster, and you figure out, the most logical explanation of how we caught this bear this day, and what the bear was doing and what the bear was thinking and, and what happened. And those are always pretty interesting conversations. That's
sure.
Always fun to do. Mm-hmm.
Well, that goes into my next topic I was going to ask you about is, a new bear hunter, somebody that is just starting, maybe got a season or two under their belt. They've had a little bit of a success, but they've also felt some frustrations. And so what advice do you give to our audience or people who may be wanting to start bear hunting with hounds?
I'd say you need to listen to Houndsman XP every Sunday.
Thank you.
And you'll get everything you need. Yeah, you'll get everything you need out of that. No, a shameless plug there, right? Just to stick with it. You just got to stick with it. Hopefully you've got some friends that you can go with and some buddies, and maybe you've hooked up with somebody that's been successful and able to catch some game to help get your dogs going in the right direction, and just stick with it.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. And have fun. Just enjoy the process. Try not to get too frustrated and upset when things don't go well, because we all do.
Mm-hmm.
I have to recalibrate myself all the time too. Not every dog is perfect, and not every day goes well, and that's just part of it. And the quicker you humble yourself to the fact that you don't have the best dogs, the more fun you're going to have, because it takes a lot of pressure off.
Wonderful advice right there. I was going to add
pressure off.
Yeah. I was going to add that myself.
You don't have to have the best dogs.
Yeah, I was going to add that myself,
Kevin. You just have to enjoy what you're doing. Yeah.
I think we got a little bit of delay here.
There's always going to be somebody. Oh, it's always going to be somebody with a better dog, or a colder nosed dog, or better looking dog. It's always that. So don't get hung with that. Just enjoy what you got. Yeah.
Hunt with people that'll be honest with you too. You got to hunt with people that are going to be honest and listen to that. Like you said, show some humility if you're new getting into it. And I still consider myself the rookie when I go and hunt different places, because I don't have bears right here. So I'm usually a guest wherever I go. And I've resigned myself that I'm not going to have the best dogs out there. And if somebody says, hey, I don't think your dogs can handle this, then we'll try to get them worked in later. Say, okay. And learn from those guys.
Well, and that process never ends. The learning curve never really ends, because there's oftentimes, if you're hunting with somebody that's newer to the sport, they make an observation just off the tip of their tongue that hits the nail on the head, and it might be something you never thought about. But because they're coming into it from a different perspective and a different background, observe something and that you can learn from, So, yeah, you never want to think you've got it all figured out, because the next bear race will prove you wrong.
Right.
That's something for everybody. Yeah.
Tell us a good bear hunting story, Kevin.
A good bear hunting story.
Yeah, you said in our pre-show. Go ahead.
My first bear hunt, I started. My dad had hounds, and he wanted to be a lion hunter. He never did get into bear hunting, but I wanted to, and so he hooked me up with some guys from the club. A guy named Ernie Fox and his brother Zeke, and they took me out quite a bit, and they were pretty good back at the time. Now this is about 1975, and the introduction to the bear hunters was quite a shock for me, coming from a real conservative family. They were a little, shall we say, rougher around the edges than what I'd been used to, and I loved it. It was great. These were great guys, big burly guys, bearded guys, rough guys. I had a great time with them, and they were just wonderful with me. But we lost our dogs all the time. One of the problems, this is before tracking systems, and we'd lose our dogs every time. Within 30 minutes, it went from following the dogs to just wild guesses as to where they might have gone. So they actually shifted to hunting at night quite a bit, or late evenings, to try to catch a bear coming into the bait and get it going red hot, so at least they could be on something red hot. But I was with them. Well, these guys were fun. They had, of course, in that era, their trucks were all the late 60s and early 70s F-250s, and the big GMCs and stuff, big 3/4-ton trucks with headers and lift kits and things like that. Old beaters. Right. But it was fun, and of course it was before 4-wheelers or these side-by-sides or anything were ever thought of, sort of, and so everything was out of these pickups, and beating around in these trucks. But one day we caught a bear, and I look back on it now, and it was actually a pop-up race. And for those guys, that's about all they were going to catch. They either got a pop-up or they didn't get anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
But they caught one, and Zeke wanted to shoot it. So Zeke pulls out this Ruger Blackhawk 44 Magnum, one of the longer barreled ones, and I'd never seen one of those before. And that pretty Western, and he zeroes off on this bear, and bam, bam, a couple of times, and out comes the bear. I'd never seen anything like that, so I'm pretty wide-eyed. And this is about as exciting as it gets, with the gun smoke drifting through the air and the dogs barking and the bear and everything. And I'm looking at the bear, and old Zeke pulls out a cigarette, and he's having a cigarette, and he catches me looking at him, and he says, "You want one?" And I said, "Yeah," that day, and man, I was there, man. I was a bear hunter now, all these guys in these big trucks, they caught a bear and they shot this big gun, and now I'm having a cigarette. And that was just, that was quite exposure to adulthood for me, yeah, fortunately the smoking phase didn't last long, but,
right.
It's a day I remember, and I tell people, somebody will post a picture, that, hey, this person caught their first bear, or shot their first bear today, and I'll always tell them that, there's a lot of days in life that come and go, but you'll never forget the day you shot your first bear. And that's just true. Universally, you'll never forget that. Right. And that one day up there with Ernie and Zeke's a day I'll never forget. But I appreciate what those guys did for me. They got me started on all that, and I've got good memories of that. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So was it a lucky strike, or was it a camel stud?
I can't remember. Heck, I don't know. Just a cigarette. Yeah. It didn't really make much difference. Yeah, it was a legal one. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Kevin,
but a lot of fun.
We're going to continue with other series in our bear hunting month of March here. Tell us what's going on at dogsRtreed.
Well, at dogsRtreed, things are going well. Gosh, our customer base has just been fantastic. We've been getting quite a bit of product out the door, and we try to get it out, the same day or the next day when an order comes in. And it's really amazing. Most of the orders are from people that we don't know, and they come in from all over the country. We've even shipped all over the world. We've shipped to Spain and Mexico even. So it's really doing quite well.
Nice.
We've got a good base on the dogsRtreed group. We had a dogsRtreed business page, but you're limited to 5,000 members on a business page. So we started a dogsRtreed group. Mm-hmm. And of course, the group can grow as big as it can go. So we encourage people to the dogsRtreed group. Nancy and I are working on a new product that not quite ready to make an announcement on yet, but we will be shortly. So you can look forward to that. Excited about that. That's the reason I'm getting behind on this Long Walker story, is because we've been busy with other things. So I went back and I started reposting some of the old original chapters, and chapter 1 and chapter 2, and I got to do chapter 3, because that completes chapter 2. That's the story about the NAF store and what happens when these two hunters drag their cat into the store to thaw it out so that they can skin it. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, next time I'm out there, we're going to get a NAF burger.
Yeah, things are good. Get a NAF burger. Yeah,
That's
that
right.
building still stands. It's not open anymore, but it does still stand.
Yeah.
But while we're on here, we'd like to maybe do a promo code with you again, like we did before. We had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
So we could do, like for the month of March, all sales for the month of March, we could donate 10% to the Houndsman XP podcast.
Man, that's great.
To help you guys out.
That's awesome.
So
we really appreciate it.
So So, we really don't even need a promo code for that. If we're going to do all sales, then there's no point in even doing a promo code. We can just advertise it as such. The promo code would just make it more complicated for people to, to plug into their cart, into their checkout. But so we can just do all sales for the month of March. That 10% would go to Houndsman XP.
That's awesome, Kevin. Tell Nancy.
Yeah, it worked out good last time.
Yeah, tell Nancy I really appreciate that. And if she's listening, we love dogsRtreed. So tell us where we can find you on social media platforms, where people can come and find you guys.
dogsRtreed, there's our website for our sales site is www.dogsrtreed.com. And then there's a Facebook group, dogsRtreed, and it's dogsRtreed on Instagram as well. So
yep.
Different places. But if you want to purchase something, the website is the best place to go. You can buy off of the Facebook business page, but it only lets you purchase one item at a time. And so that doesn't work as nearly as well as what the website does, www.dogsrtreed.com. And there's
great
T-shirts and hoodies and stickers. We've got a dogsRtreed sticker with a bear on it, and a long walker mountain lion, and one with a raccoon, and one with a bobcat.
New bobcat.
New bobcat. Mm-hmm. Yep. And those are pretty sharp. And
yep.
Nancy's been doing some mugs with dogsRtreed on a coffee mug, and she started doing some license plates for your license plate holders. There's like 19 states that don't require a front license plate, and so you could put something custom on. Mm-hmm. And she sold several of those, and those look pretty cool.
Yeah,
look pretty cool as well.
You got any closing thoughts you want to throw in here before we sign off?
Stick with it, guys. Bear season's around the corner. Days are going to get longer. Days are going to be warmer. You'll be camping. You'll be bear hunting. Good times ahead. Look forward.
Yeah. Yep, it's going to be a good
Get those
time.
Dogs in shape.
There you go.
Dogs in shape and toughen up their feet. Hint, hint. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Hint.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'll just leave us with this, Kevin. I'm going to get back out there hopefully this spring, and my dogs will be in shape, but they're going to have to take a little bit of time to adjust to those scenting conditions in Idaho. So if we hit this bear track and we end up splitting this race, as our other host and old friend Steve Fielder says, you follow your hounds and I'll follow mine.